We do begin with the rising tensions between the U.S. and Russia after the downing of that American drone, the first known direct confrontation between the superpowers since Russia invaded Ukraine. U.S. officials say a Russian fighter jet collided with that MQ-9 Reaper drone, forcing the U.S. military to bring it down into the Black Sea. Now, a short time ago, during a briefing with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin there at the Pentagon, along with Joint Chiefs Chair Mark Milley, well, they said that they will not consider the downing an act of war, but that's enough. Take a listen.
Is this considered an act of war?
As far as an act of war goes, I'm not gonna go there. Incidents happen, and clearly we do not seek armed conflict with Russia, and I believe that at this point we should investigate this incident and move on from there.
ABC News senior Pentagon reporter Luis Martinez joining me now live to discuss. So, Luis, I mean, they're making it, I guess the biggest part of what happened in that news conference is that we found out that Secretary Austin actually spoke with his Russian counterpart. Clearly, it's opening up the diplomatic channels, but the secretary had a pretty harsh message for him as well.
Well, the message was that this was the culmination of a pattern of aggressive behavior on the part of the Russians within the Black Sea, intimidation, harassment of manned aircraft, unmanned aircraft. But you're exactly right, Kira. The importance here is that the fact that Secretary Austin actually got Sergei Shoigu on the phone. They have not spoken much in the last year since Russia invaded Ukraine. In fact, might be the third phone call that they've had. And Shoigu has rebuffed many of the offers to talk on the phone from Austin. So significance in that. One of the things that you did hear from Austin as well is that the United States will continue to fly in international airspace wherever international law allows. And that's the message that they want to convey to the Russians. The other message was keep those lines of communication open, because that is one way to avoid a miscalculation. Obviously, the significance of this incident itself, it's the first direct contact between the U.S. military and Russian military aircraft, and it results in a situation where this drone eventually was brought down. But imagine what would have happened had the pilot executed this maneuver a little less than he had tried to do, and potentially could have been seeing this Russian jet fighter brought down itself. I mean, that is just something else to think about. We're in a situation right now where we're seeing both sides trying to de-escalate and talking to each other, but at the same time, it could have been much worse.
So Russia, of course, says, hey, this was unintentional, also adding that it's now trying to retrieve the drone. Are they going to be able to do that? And if so, I mean, it's out in the depths of the Black Sea, right? If they did, would they be able to recover any U.S. intelligence from the wreckage?
No, you nailed it, Kara. The depths of the Black Sea, we just heard from General Milley there talk about how it's probably sunk to the level of 4,000 to 5,000 feet to the ocean floor there. And not only that, but it probably broke on impact. We had been told that after it had brought down, U.S. officials said that it floated on the surface for a while before it collapsed down. The Russians, if they wanted to, I mean, obviously it would be a big effort on their part. And so what kind of information could they even glean from it? We've talked to U.S. officials who've told us what they did was that they erased, following procedures, what they did was they erased any capability or any information that was stored on the equipment that was being transported aboard that drone, so that it would be of minimal intelligence value to the Russians if they ever succeeded in it. You did hear that the United States has no vessels in the Black Sea. That hasn't happened for the last year. So the United States really could not have that capability either. But you did hear General Milley kind of indicate that if there was a possibility of trying to get it, if that decision is made, that maybe there might be some cooperation with U.S. allies in the region.
Is there video out there of what went down?
There is video. Remember, these Reapers, which are a very large version of the Predator that we're so accustomed to having mentioned during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, it carries electronic sensors, communication sensors, but it carries cameras. And so obviously there is a camera underneath the fuselage there, and it captured the incident. We've heard descriptions from those who have seen it that you see the Russian fighter approaching at a high rate of speed at the drone, and then intentionally trying to drop some of its jet fuel on it. Again, a procedure that I've never heard of, but that apparently is a harassment technique that some of the Russian pilots have used against manned aircraft. We're told this is something that was the first time that has been used against unmanned aircraft. But that video, if and when it is released, would be an attempt to kind of push back on the Russian notions that there was no contact. They're saying that there was no contact and that the drone went down because of a sudden, sharp movement.
All right, Louis, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kara.
For more, let's bring in also, as we talk about just the rising tensions here and the downing of that drone, once again, ABC News contributor and former U.S. ambassador to NATO, Lieutenant General Doug Lute. So, Doug, what do you think? Was this a typical harassment technique?
Well, it's typical in the sense that these sorts of intercepts in international airspace take place quite regularly, and not only in the Black Sea, but in international airspace over the Baltic Sea, in airspace outside the territories in Alaska, and frankly in a combat zone today in the skies over Syria. So there's plenty of opportunity here for these sorts of intercepts, especially when one side is intercepting another aircraft which is unidentified, which is apparently the Russian perspective here, right? They took on this intercept to try to determine what the Predator or what the Reaper was and what it was actually doing. What's not typical, obviously, is the collision, is the contact, the physical contact, which obviously was very damaging to the drone, but could have been a catastrophe for the Russian pilot as well. And this is where this danger of escalation is very evident. I mean, what if this had led to the loss of life in a disputed case of who did what to whom, and with the loss of the Russian pilot? So this is a good case, a very solid case of the dangers of these close contacts and the potential for escalation.
So we heard Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin say that he spoke with his Russian counterpart today, but can his Russian counterpart be trusted?
Well, I think any trust of Russia these days is reason to really be doubted, right? I mean, look, here we're talking about the violation of international standards in air maneuvers, right? Which feature things like minimum safe separation distance and so forth. But we're talking about those sorts of standards, international standards, with a country, Russia, which has invaded its neighbor, and in the course of that invasion has committed a series of war crimes. So I think trust is at an all-time low. What's important, however, is that the contact actually took place. They knew how to reach one another. Shoigu apparently accepted the bid for the call. The translators were available, and the call took place. That's important because these sorts of calls can serve to de-escalate and reduce the risk of incidents just like this.
Lieutenant General Doug Lute, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.